Democrats seem to be having this debate whether or not Maher Mamdani is a socialist or a democratic socialist. Let me settle it. He's a straight-up communist. How do I know this? Well, I'm reading between the lines when one of his major advisors says, elect more communists. Which is fine. It's fine. It's a belief system. He's allowed to believe it, and people are allowed to vote for it. But if liberals deny it, like he's just going through a goth phase, they're going to lose more elections. This is not a communist country.
Bill Maher is cutting straight through the political noise, explaining why the Democratic Party's energy seems to be falling apart. This time, he focused his anger on New York Mayor Zohran Mamdani and didn't hold back at all. He went after him publicly and very hard, making it clear he thinks something serious is going wrong.
And finally, new rule, if you're still looking for a New Year's resolution, here's one. Get out of your media bubble. The most frustrating thing that happens to me whenever I'm off is people I run into want me to do my job, which I'm on vacation from, privately in restaurants and at parties, and, well, the bathhouse is a separate situation. But look, I'm happy to share my opinions wherever, except for this. Everybody, left and right, is only half informed.
Mamdani has rolled out big new plans for New York, including higher taxes and moves connected to ICE that really rubbed Maher the wrong way. The longtime comedian fired back, sharper and louder than usual. And as always, make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't yet, because we're jumping straight into the real conversation.
Now, let me tell you about the story that liberal algorithms locked out. Her name is Sia Weaver. And if you ask anyone in the blue sky bubble who that is, they'll look at you like a turkey looking up at the rain. But she's kind of important in New York, being Major Mamdani's chief of the Office to Protect Tenants, and since Mamdani's big issue is the rent's too damn high, yes, he stole this guy's act. It's a very key appointment in the most important city in the country, which is also our financial center. It matters that the mayor stands by, and so I assume stands with, someone who says things like, if you don't believe in the government's sacred right to seize private property, it's over.
The moment that finally pushed Maher over the edge was one sentence: seize private property. Just 3 words, but they didn't come from some random protester yelling on the street. They came from Mamdani's top aide. To Maher, that language sounded straight out of far-left ideology. This wasn't a mistake or a joke. It felt like a loud warning sign. Maher has been saying for years that putting Mamdani in power could drag New York in a radical direction, pushing the city toward a heavier government-controlled economy. Now, from Maher's point of view, that warning is coming true in real time. That's why he's so angry. When politicians start saying the quiet part out loud, the mask slips off. Maher doesn't see this as a normal policy disagreement. He sees it as an ideological takeover, where big theories crush basic common sense. And when Maher connects those dots, he doesn't whisper. His criticism doesn't just hit Mamdani. It sends shockwaves through the DNC and sparks serious political backlash.
Seize private property. Home ownership is racist. Elect more communists. Private property, especially home ownership, is a weapon of white supremacy. Really? Even among the 20 million black Americans who own their own home? I mean, these are the kind of utterances I might forgive as something a dumb white girl said while she was at Bryn Mawr. Because it's the kind of privilege hating you can only learn for $95,000 a year. But these are statements made as an adult. Yes, for co-eds from elite private colleges, you're only a lesbian until graduation, but the communism lasts a lifetime.
It's easy to understand why Maher was annoyed, because he expected at least basic research before someone claimed that owning a home is a form of white supremacy. That statement didn't just sound extreme, it sounded lazy. This wasn't someone who lacked access to information. She went to a top college, one that proudly teaches critical thinking, facts, and proper research. Maher's point was simple: if you're given that level of education, the least you can do is use it. Instead, he watched academic language get twisted into activist slogans, stripped of context and facts. To Maher, this wasn't real progress. It was intellectual malpractice. When ideology replaces thinking, education loses its purpose. That's what truly upset him, not disagreement, but logic being thrown away for talking points. In his view, when educated people push careless ideas like this, it doesn't raise the debate, it lowers it.
I am in support of abolishing ICE, and I'll tell you why. Because what we see is an entity that has no interest in fulfilling its stated reason to exist. We're seeing a government agency that is supposed to be enforcing some kind of immigration law, but instead what it's doing is terrorizing people no matter their immigration status, no matter the facts of the law, no matter the facts of the case. And I'm tired of waking up every day and seeing a new image of someone being dragged out of a car, dragged out of their home, dragged out of their life. What we need to see is humanity.
You can also see how Mamdani and much of the left-leaning media have framed this issue in a very simple and extreme way, even though the truth is far more complicated. From Maher's perspective, ICE has been turned into a political prop instead of being looked at honestly. Over and over, headlines scream about terrible abuses, only for later investigations or court decisions to quietly walk those claims back or add missing context. But those corrections never spread as far as the outrage. That imbalance is what drives Maher crazy. He's not saying ICE is perfect, he's saying the truth keeps getting buried under distortion. When enforcement agencies are treated as villains by default, serious policy discussion breaks down. Everything becomes emotional theater instead of fact-based debate. This kind of politics runs on exaggeration, fear, and selective storytelling, and that's exactly what sets him off. Not disagreement, but bending reality to serve ideology.
Democrats seem to be having this debate whether or not Maher Mamdani is a socialist or a democratic socialist. Let me settle it. He's a straight-up communist. How do I know this? Well, I'm reading between the lines when one of his major advisors says, elect more communists. Which is fine. It's fine. It's a belief system. He's allowed to believe it, and people are allowed to vote for it. But if liberals deny it, like he's just going through a goth phase, they're going to lose more elections. This is not a communist country.
Maher's anger isn't really aimed only at Mamdani himself. It's focused on the hardline groups inside the DNC who refuse to speak up about what Mamdani is doing. In Maher's eyes, the bigger problem isn't the radicals pushing extreme ideas, it's the moderates who know better but stay silent. That silence, he says, is how fringe politics spreads without resistance. And this isn't new. We've seen this pattern before. Just last year, mainstream liberals avoided calling out the excesses of woke culture, choosing party unity over honesty. Instead of setting clear limits, they stayed quiet and hoped the moment would pass. Maher believes that hesitation came with a price. Voters noticed, trust dropped, and the party drifted further from reality. Now, in his view, the same cycle is happening again. Extreme ideas are being treated as normal, while responsible voices inside the DNC are nowhere to be heard.
And this is the pendulum never lands in the middle problem I'm always bitching about. Really, the choices we get here are either the worst version of crony capitalism or communism, either a side deal for the Trump family every time he does business overseas, or the lady who says, impoverish the white middle class. Oh yeah, there's a great campaign slogan for you. Honestly, as New York mayoral races go, I was less creeped out by Anthony Weiner's.
Maher is genuinely shaken by what he sees as Mamdani's hard-left political stance. He never thought liberals could push things even further, especially after fully embracing woke culture the way they did. In Maher's mind, that era already felt like rock bottom. He believed the party couldn't sink lower than choosing slogans over substance and activism over reality. He assumed that collapse would lead to self-reflection, but instead of changing direction, the party leaned in even harder. That's what shocks him the most. Maher admits he overestimated underestimated the liberals' ability or even desire to move back toward the center. Rather than learning from voter backlash, party leaders kept drifting left, turning once fringe ideas into mainstream views. To Maher, this isn't progress, it's forgetting reality. And the longer the party avoids facing that truth, the further it moves away from everyday Americans. Now listen, as Mamdani explains one of his policy proposals.
These are programs for every single New Yorker. These are not programs that are going to ask the immigration status of any one of the children. All of those children are New Yorkers. They should all be enrolled in pre-K and pre-K, no matter where they were born or where they come from. We are also proud to be a sanctuary city. What a sanctuary city means is that we have policies in place, policies that have existed for years in the city, that deny ICE agents access into schools, hospitals, city properties, or even the properties of city contractors, unless those ICE agents can present a judicial warrant signed by a judge.
You can feel the concern growing. New York could be heading toward a serious immigration and homelessness crisis after Mamdani's announcements. Critics say this story feels very familiar because California has been living it for years. Policies that started with good intentions slowly overwhelmed public systems, crushed housing markets, and pushed social services to the breaking point. Now many fear New York is about to repeat that same experiment. Mamdani's promise to give free healthcare and other government benefits to everyone, no matter their immigration status, has set off alarm bells. Supporters call it compassionate leadership. Opponents argue it creates incentives the city simply can't handle. Maher's point is that New York is already struggling with high costs, shelter shortages, and overcrowded hospitals. Expanding eligibility could make those problems grow much faster over time. To him, this isn't about kindness versus cruelty, it's about realism versus denial. Ignoring long-term consequences, he warns, is how cities fall into lasting decline.
It is the dead of winter, another snowstorm is coming, and homeless encampments are still a critical problem in Mayor Mamdani's New York. So how is the mayor going to deal with it? Political reporter Marcia Kramer took her questions to Mamdani in this story that you will see here only on CBS News New York.
They are an eyesore. CBS News New York discovering homeless encampments, 2 on the Upper West Side, 2 in Hell's Kitchen, with many wondering how the new mayor will deal with the twin problems of finding a humane solution and optics that make it look like the city is out of control. This man, afraid to show his face, says he's called 311 repeatedly about the 2 encampments on West 45th Street.
They take the call like they're supposed to, but nothing's really happening.
How do you feel about the fact that nothing's happening?
Well, I don't feel good about it because I've been in this neighborhood for 3 decades.
You can clearly see how homelessness is putting more and more pressure on what was once a thriving New York. A city that used to stand for opportunity and ambition is now bending under a crisis that keeps getting worse. Even major outlets like CBS have reported on rising encampments, packed shelters, and stretched city resources. Streets that once buzzed with business now show signs of failed policy and neglect. And this isn't just a New York problem. California has followed this same path for years. Sky-high housing costs, widespread homelessness, and government programs that burn through billions with little progress. That's why critics are uneasy. They've watched this story unfold before. New York is facing the same problem California never solved, and many worry it's heading down the same road. Maher's warning is simple. Ignoring reality doesn't make a crisis disappear. It gives it room to grow.
Mr. Mayor, I wondered if you could indulge me for a second. So I took the problem to the mayor himself, showing him video of people camped on the street in such frigid weather. What is your office going to do about it, and is it acceptable, given the fact that it's 21 degrees, for these people to be there on the street, on the Upper West Side, and getting no help?
It is not acceptable for a New Yorker to have to find shelter outside, whether on the Upper West Side or anywhere in this. New Yorkers should be able to find a place to call their home. And what I have said consistently, first as a candidate and now as the mayor, is that outcomes are how we judge ourselves.
Mamdani has made it clear that he won't force homeless people off the streets. Instead, he's promising a softer, voluntary approach. On paper, it sounds compassionate, but critics quickly point out that this looks a lot like what Governor Gavin Newsom tried in California, and that plan barely changed anything. Newsom's strategy depended on homeless individuals choosing to seek help, enter shelters, and accept services on their own. In reality, participation stayed low, and encampments kept spreading. Billions of dollars were spent, yet sidewalks stayed crowded and tents multiplied. That's why Maher and others remain doubtful. Good intentions alone don't produce results. When enforcement disappears, accountability goes with it. The fear now is that New York is preparing to repeat California's costly mistake, recycling the same ideas, expecting different outcomes, and leaving taxpayers to pay the price.
If you're still looking for a New Year's resolution, here's one. Get out of your media bubble. The most frustrating thing that happens to me whenever I'm off is people I run into want me to do my job, which I'm on vacation from, privately in restaurants and at parties, and, well, the bathhouse is a separate situation. But look, I'm happy to share my opinions wherever, except for this. Everybody, left and right, is only half informed.
Maher is urging everyone on the left and the right to step outside their media bubbles and actually listen to opposing views. His message hits especially hard for leftists who only follow voices that agree with them. Maher says that kind of mental isolation is how people become misinformed, and even worse, confidently wrong. Disagreement gets treated like danger, and facts get twisted by ideology instead of reason. He argues that democracy can't survive on constant outrage and algorithm-driven echo chambers. Real understanding only happens when different views are heard, challenged, and debated openly. But today's political spaces often reward loyalty more than curiosity. The result is a culture where stories beat truth and feelings outweigh evidence. This echo chamber thinking doesn't just weaken the left, it blinds it. And until people face uncomfortable ideas, misinformation will keep feeding itself. That's the end of today's video. If you liked it, hit like and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.